things that happen at night. The sun shines on the wicked and the just. It begins soon. So sorry to wake you. So sorry to wake you. Sweet dreams.
Greetings in the name of the Most High. Now, that doesn't mean the most drunk. That doesn't mean the the Most High on drugs. It means the Most High as a differentiation against, a sort of a pantheon of gods that have various functions, as if they're just forces of nature. So there's a okay. Let's start again. So I had this dream. Adjust my glasses. Adjust the hat. Get down here. Get down and more comfortable. It's just a blocking position. So I had this dream of I was watching something on the telly, and a series. I'm not sure which one it was. It was one of these Mobland or something. And I'd fallen asleep, which happens sometimes to me on series. I want you to binge watch, but they just hold out plot points so that they keep you on the hook. And so I think I dozed off, and I had this really realistic dream of that I was seeing my psychotherapist. Now, why would you need that? It doesn't really matter, does it? And the conversation kept getting into this, going back to the time of being in the hospital. And I admit I came out of there with congestive heart failure, kidney failure, lung failure, infection, basically a dead man walking. And because, once you're diagnosed with heart failure, you only have a few years to live, unless you can turn around your whole health profile. I mean, it would take a miracle to live, to live much longer for me. Well, I'm not saying there won't be a miracle, but I mean, there needs to be some kind of miracle to go on. But I mean, it's not going to go on forever. Well, it might go on forever. But let me just clue you in on this thing. And I know that Trish has told a couple people about this, but I woke up sobbing. And I was in a chair. I have my little chair for watching films, and got a big screen, like 4K viewing setup, and old audio that I put together years and years ago. It still works fantastic. And so finally, after beating around the bush, I guess we get down to it, which is the therapist telling me that I'm in denial, and I'm not accepting reality, and I'm not, and I've been kind of in and out of this kind of denial my whole life, but I'm really in it now because in the hospital, I had passed on. I passed away. I had died because nobody could really survive what I survived. I don't think there's no one there thought that I would it'd be so very unusual if you have if you have heart failure, kidney failure, MRSA, lung operation to remove infection, collapsed lung. I think pretty much, that's like the Pope, squared or something. So I didn't make it out of there, but I went on living. I was taken to rehab. I still couldn't walk, even with a walker. I had a real hard time. Like getting into a car was a big, big, challenge. Like I could fall on my face, and I did fall a couple times. But so there's a lot of implications. And then I looked at the wall, and there's a picture of the therapist who was a local person that she works with a lot of uh, prisons and stuff. It's not a faint of heart person. You know what I mean? Pretty rugged. And she's telling me, I'm I'm normal. I'm not nuts, but I'm in denial because I died, and I have to, it's time to accept the fact that, basically I've been wandering through this life, just kind of holding on with these issues that, and the reason I'm not seeing any doctors is because they just say I'm terminal. So, you know what I mean? They kick me out. They don't want to see me. It's like, well, where do we begin? It reminds me of a movie that Nick Nolte was in, where the doc says, and then there's prostate issues too, being able to pee, just every single thing is basically gone, and the doctor sends him home and says, just keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing we can do for you. You're done, and then he goes on, and I forget the name of the movie, but that was pretty interesting. Anyway, so I died, and then so I wasn't accepting it, and then when I started considering the possibility and considering what it really meant in terms of thinking I was interacting with people when I wasn't, and things were really a struggle, more of a struggle than they should be when you're alive, when you're an organic being and alive. Things shouldn't just be a terrible struggle every second. So, and then I started realizing, well, I'm dead. Okay, fine. I passed away. And I remember talking to a couple of people that were, like Trish, and a guy that does work around here. He was saying, and somebody else, I think Larry, saying how terrible it was that, and what they were telling me was that they were given notice that I'd passed away, and that and I was not hearing them right. I was hearing they were all crying because they thought, the prognosis was bad, but it wasn't a prognosis. They had heard that I had passed on, and that's and that's why all the tears and all the troubles and all that. So I end up, at the same time I'm getting a visit every day from Trish, and I'm in rehab, and I'm just wondering how I'm going to get to the car. That's my main thing. How do I get from here to the car? And because I was going to go, rehab goes for like 2 weeks, and then you have to go. And good luck. And so all of that time leading up to now, like a year and a half, leading up to now, has been a fantasy, like a dream. Leading up to me finally accepting the revelation that I was dead. But then Now hold on, folks, before you think you've got the story all wrapped up. Then all of a sudden I realized, but I'm walking around, but I'm alive. I'm not doing very well, but I'm alive. And and I'm walking around alive. And so then the possibilities seemed then endless. And I realized this is not my first rodeo. Well, Trish hasn't heard this part. This is not my first rodeo. Um, I've died quite a few times. And when I was in the coma in the hospital, which they do a rendition of that in the Dark Side of Society, which is a documentary about how I processed my trauma of childhood abuse and adolescent torture to become a writer. And then I realized I died in the hospital when I was in the coma, and my heart stopped for 20 minutes, for real. This is not a dream. And somehow I made it through that. Well, I didn't make it through that. I died of an overdose at 18. And then I realized, well, with this, what was becoming clear to me was that not just the multiplicity of different lives and things, but the reality of dreams, that living in these dreams was more real than having this so-called solid life where there's a birth certificate, a group of friends, a high school diploma, the rites of passage, whatever they are. And those things melted away and became not necessary for proof. In other words, the solid world became the questionable world, because again, I had died and I was wandering through, like I'm talking to Trish and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to, carrying on as if I'm alive, but I'm not alive. And at the same time, I have had access to different trajectories of life. Like when I got out of I guess I must have left the morgue and when I OD'd. And then I went on with my life there. And I'd always thought that I died, you know what I mean? But I would never really embrace that until finally it was like someone asked me, well, why would you go to therapy now? I said, you're right. I really needed it 30 years ago. That would have really been helpful. But I guess I just was too afraid or ashamed, or I guess it was fear to ask or to get involved. It had terrible connotations leading back to, being incarcerated in mental hospitals and psychiatrists 5 days a week and Thorazine and, all the other, hospital rape. Oh yeah, that went on. All kinds of shit went on. And, you know what I mean? It just was like, well, the last thing I want to do is be around any kind of, psychiatric anything, because it's all one big joke. But then what was offered to me also was a Christian counselor. And I said, no, please, never that. Never Christian counseling. I don't want to go, pray on Hallow. I don't want to be involved. And that abuse that I went through with those people is probably worse than the Satanists, who were, delighted that I had killed myself, delighted that they had engineered. Actually, I didn't kill myself; they engineered my overdose, but delighted on these various poisonings and ODs and, trying to start out with some kind of a, opportunity or employment, only to be fired for no reason, never figuring out what the reason was, gang stalking, all that all of it has been a signpost to prove to me that I'm dead. That the gang stalking never really happened the way it was happening was like a dream. was impossible, the coincidences, impossible the things that would happen, impossible. And that's why when people describe gang stalking, they get accused of being mentally ill. Well, yes, because it's more like someone's reporting a dream. I went there, and all of a sudden, 15 people entered the same store I was in. They all were wearing the same red shirt, and they all started surrounding me and making noises. Oh, and the psychiatrist is going, yes, tell me about that, Zeph. And they were all making noises. And so I started grunting and groaning and whistling and clearing my throat too, and then they all scattered because that scared them. And this is insane. If someone look at me and go, that sounds insane. That sounds insane. And like people look at the film that I think comes out on May 13. And just promise me you'll throw a little bit my way, and you can get it from Apple Plus or Prime or something. Eventually you'll have it for free, but I mean, you don't want to you don't want to watch my blood, sweat, and tears for free, do you? You want me to work for free? Do you want me to just toil and suffer and cry and die for nothing? And as opposed to being like $2.99 or something? Come on, I'm worth at least $2.99. I mean, right? And then, if you can relate to what I'm saying there, my story about how I became a writer, if you can relate to anything, then put in a good word. Don't just let the bad guys tell me I'm full of, because they'll just say that, well, we let them say whatever they want. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I don't tell them to believe me. They can believe what they want, but in telling my story, it's absolutely true that story that I tell is how I became a writer, and the story is of trauma, getting channeled into a written word, and how that then becomes, there's something about that became very successful. And so, it's also interesting for people that are fans of the movie Society to know where it came from. And, they've always heard that there was some autobiographical stuff in there. And I had another writing partner, Rick Fry, who came on late. I'd already written the story. And then once we got into pre-production, it changed to the elites are genetically different than kind of like a They Live type of thing. To make it easier for people to understand the story. So it morphed, but the core of it, the characters and the situation, I had already laid out in the beginning, and it didn't really change. Even though some people might argue it did, it didn't. And it was like, as Brian Usna, the director, said that, that Rick, whom he knew and as a writer, Rick and I can't write those characters. It's like, no, those characters were right out of, I used to hide the screenplay because I was afraid of some kind of retribution. But by the time I got to LA and I was having panic attacks and going to this class and just trying to survive, I was convinced by others, by professionals, that I was sick and that there was no such thing. I know this podcast is going to just seem really spacey and really weird, but there was no such thing as any of that stuff that had traumatized me that led to the writing, and that I had the condition of my release from a certain institution was based on me signing a thing that said there were no people at the waiting to kill me at the house that night. And I really believed that that I convinced myself that nothing like that had ever happened, and that my whole testimony about that was wrong, and I was right to be placed in the hospital because obviously I'm psychotic, obviously I'm crazy, and obviously that was wrong. And so when I went back to LA, it was like I had to prove it, I'm wrong, right? So I was looking around, and so I started writing this story, which is based on stuff that I'd already debunked as being false. And then somewhere along the line, there was a phone call from someone that had was familiar with the situation, I'll put it that way, who knew me. And she was, I guess, helping out the casting director. The film got greenlit, like for whatever reason, like right off the bat. It's really interesting. And then she was saying that she said, "I just read the screenplay, and everything you wrote there is real." And I'm like, "What? No, no, it can't be. It can't be. If that's real, then and then if my talk about what's real got me locked up, there's something got to be wrong somewhere, right?" Uh, so, I guess in summing up my life here and kind of like looking at, and I look at that, and everyone around me, the entire film department, whatever, the production company, the parents, the friends, whatever, they weren't normal anymore. It was like I was already dead. It was like a dream at Los Angeles. Well, think back of it now, and trying to see if there was some Satanism going on over there, or there's some kind of secret over there. What are they up to over there? What's happening? And then it was later on that in the mid '90s, after Society had come out, it was banned for 2 years from distributors, banned it from the States, but accepted it and embraced it in the UK, where it went crazy. So then they all eventually they had to carry it, and then it became a cult hit. Well, it's good to sum all this stuff up before the end. If there is going to be an end, it'd be good to have all this somehow wrapped up. But every time I try to wrap it up, it seems more and more insane. You know what I mean? More like a dream and less like what I thought reality was. And eventually, after that phone call, and I remember at that time, like I said, I was working on the script with Brian Usna in one of the rooms. I was going through a divorce, and my wife had left, and she had told the court that I was psychotic and paranoid and insane. So that was already in the court documents. So I was ready to kill myself at that point. And and then Society got going, and it's prevented me from committing suicide. Really, it was in a sense, Society, the film, saved my ass, because without that, I wouldn't have had any reason to live. I would have been betrayed by everything, by my mind, by people, by cities, by the whole joke of the United States and nations and bullshit history that's all fake, and everything is fake. I mean, in other words, what I was seeing as reality bore no likeness to the reality that we are experiencing day to day. And so what do you do then? And I was really confused, but I would test people. I say, "You know anything about anything?" And see if they say something, at that point. And then I went running after, when I went to Italy at that point, and went after that phone call, and came back a couple weeks later with a new girlfriend, and she just became my handler, basically, and was just working with to keep me in the Truman Show and keep me under a bubble of a fake world. And that was her utility. That's all she was good for, actually. And I another bizarre situation. And But like I was saying, and then finally at the end of this period of film, this like where we've been working hard on different films, there'll be a bunch of different films coming out. It's like they all come out at once. And they, like there was Girl Next that's out there, but then there'll be like several others. But in this time of working on all that stuff, and so what do I want from it? Well, what I'm getting from it, I guess I know now why I'm doing it. It's about tying up loose ends. It's about figuring out what reality is, and it's definitely about processing reality as I find it through my writing, which is helps me to at least understand that there was something that was solid somewhere, because everything had gone topsy-turvy. Like I said, if I'm dead and then, people are popping into you think about somebody and they pop into your life, they show up on your Facebook feed of people you should know, or you do know, or someone you knew from high school or something pops up, or some phone call or some kind of coincidence or some, that would rival the gang stalking incidents, which were just like, where we experience actual shifts in reality, where like you'd be in a supermarket shopping and then all of a sudden there would be these predators with shopping carts, and they would then try to run into you on purpose. Well, those of you who know, I mean, those who don't. And it's just unbelievable, this psychic link that I obviously summoned them psychically, and then they showed up all at once, and then they just started in. If I wanted olive oil, but they were, lined up with the olive oil. There was no way to get any olive oil. No, it's okay. You can get them to go around the other way. And then of course, back then in the days leading up to, that led up to suicides and, really being stalked, like there was no suicide. I didn't commit suicide. I think what happened is I was murdered, and they made it try to look like a suicide, but it was with, with pharmaceutical phenobarbital and LSD, is what they're using as a cocktail, and then gaslighting me with a supposed girlfriend I had, and then she was, gaslighted. They were all gaslighting me, and it was like I was surrounded with this other reality that I couldn't. I was supposed to go to school. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't do anything because I was being harassed like crazy. And if that was indeed the reality, then the real reality is completely not just misunderstood by the population that maybe exists and maybe doesn't. Because it seemed like people in my life that exist, they would just pop up and exist for as long as they needed to. Then they would disappear to wherever they went, and one couldn't even say what happened there. It was like they were never there in the first place, just like dreams. And so now it gets weirder and weirder, weirder and weirder. Yes. No, a lot of this I'm gonna, you need to process it, write it, do art about it. And that's because most people don't see, they couldn't even follow this conversation. So I know you guys all do, but most people may just write me off as being insane. That being said, the times I tried to live like what you might call a normal life, home front, dog, whatever, I had Trish was like a third attempt at having a relationship in my life, and turned out to be like a, what do you call it? Like a fellow black sheep, kind of same situation as I'm in. And then, she got to see a lot of things that that I talked about, that I've talked about here today, and she got to see them firsthand. And then her eyes were open to the whole thing. And then she was, on our side, which is we don't attack people, we don't gaslight people, we don't, pop in and then pop out interdimensionally, which they do. We don't have like you can be in the same location in a supermarket. I say a supermarket, a gym, whatever, some place, the DMV, whatever. And then it's suddenly it's not the same. It's like a different set. When I'm in the hospital in Albuquerque, I became aware that my room would shift from something from the 1900s at times, and there were people in there that were eternally youthful, like these nurses that knew something, and they were telling me, "You better shut up about this. You're obviously seeing through the veil." And then, to the result of that is they kidnapped me in the middle of the night, and they strapped me down to an MRI machine, and we're doing an MRI in my brain to find out, what's going on there because of my capability, because of what I was babbling about, which they don't obviously want you to babble about, because it's not just, for the last 20 years, the truth community. What the fuck is that? You know what I mean? What the fuck is that? And what they're looking into is pedophilia and human trafficking and wars and rumors of wars and corruption and all that. Well, yeah, that's all true, but that's just like one, like 1/100th of what's going on. I'm talking about this, the radio, the frequency, this thing, that thing, they're all talking in the same language to you. And then people are popping in and out. And the whole thing is leading you and gaslighting you into, pain and death, because they have to rid the earth of you, because you might be, let me just go to what my Beverly Hills psychiatrist was, one of his pet peeves was, he would always accuse me of being omnipotent. Like I'd be in seclusion all weekend, and he'd come in on Monday and how's your weekend? Oh, it's great. That sort of thing. But I might as well have said that, because there is no such thing as the hospital. There is no such thing as a supermarket. There is no such thing as a group of people following any kind of rules. They don't exist. So you might as well be dead and have it be like dreams, popping in and out, because that's all that ever really happened. That's straight up my Maui hat, wearing that in honor of Maui was an inside job, and Pacific Palisades, where I spent a lot of my youth, was an inside job, and is an inside job. It's an ongoing inside job, and the people are powerless to do anything about it. It's just the way it goes. They just kill you, and you can't do anything about it. They kill you, you have no voice. They kill you like you never existed. You pop in, you pop out. Yeah, while they're popping in and out, you're popping in and out. The plane lands, and you get off the plane, but in reality, it crashed and you're dead. But what you saw was it landed and you got off the plane, and now your life goes on there. So you see what I mean by what the truth community is focused on the last one. And I agree, focusing on saving the children is a good thing. It's terrible what there are people that just prey on children, and they just, why do you do that? Because I have to, it's like, my God, I'm in hell. And, I was one of the kids preyed on. So, and then that became the system of not just the elites, but then it became the world. Then other days would pass where the world was like Disneyland. Then other days would pass where the world had some kind of equanimity to it, some kind of, well, let's say an equilibrium of peace. And all these states of mind would create the world anew day by day, and then it would influence it. What would happen to me? You know how they say you think you think negative thoughts and you get negative things. I mean, that's also interacting in all this, which also shows the lack of solidity, the lack of, if you really want to be transparent about it, there's uh, a lack of rigor. There isn't. I mean, I suppose you can get into a narrow tunnel and go be a person, get your degree, get your job, have your 2.5 children and your, 3-bedroom house and live in the suburbs and be, a happy idiot. I suppose that's fine. But at some point along the way, probably when you get sick and you start seeing, because of the drugs and the different things they give you, you start seeing through that all of this was a joke. All of this was fake. Everything is everything that I see is, it's either I'm dead or it's fake or both. And if I'm dead, then there is no death. But life goes on like dreams flowing into one another. It's sort of like that movie, What Dreams May Come, but not so structured. That had an overlord, like an overstructure to it, which we can't predict what the structure would be. But certainly when we have new experiences and things change, I mean, it's not just one thing, the whole universe changes in that moment, and you changed, and the old world is gone. And then you're in a new world, but because your mind pieces it together, you just adapt and go on, but without questioning. Still in the mind control, that there's some kind of contiguous time space plane that you're on that has rules and you follow it and you live and then you die. And along the way you suffer and you have good times, bad times, etc. But basically you're on that trajectory and you follow the rules, you have your friends, you have this, you have that. You go to the park, you have a picnic on July 4th, but then you die. But there is no such thing as that. That doesn't exist. I didn't want to get into the thing of the people that sell out to the God of this world, to the structure of this world, to the rules of this world, and how they call themselves the Grateful Dead, right? Because it's because they die to God. And that's people have free will. It's the choice. They hurt children. Then they have wars and they hate each other. And then they basically have a hate fest. And then at the end of the hate fest, they get sick and die. And it's pretty boring because that's not what reality is. And so now we get into the idea of time travel. Okay, so time travel, like what I saw at the hospital, was obviously there were portals going back to the 1920s and different time periods, and there were people, nurses, who looked like they were 23 years old or something, but they were old, and they were able to go back and forth and through these portals and never age, never change, and they would recognize someone who could see like me and feel some kind of bond, like I'm really supposed to be with them, but I'm not with them because I'm not there. They're struggling for my life. But then they talk to you like, not like you're sick, but they talk to you like you know what's going on. Like you're some kind of royalty. And that's another weird thing. Like you're somebody from somewhere else that's important, but we can't tell you and you need to shut up. And it's nice to think you might be somebody somewhere else, but it's not something you can really bank on. It's not like past life regressions where you can envision yourself as, the king of Spain or the king of France or something, that's basically a lot of fantasy, but but it moves, it morphs. And that's the way life moves and morphs. It changes and changes hour to hour, day to day. And this idea of the dead, the real dead, the dead really means the transcendent, really means the multidimensional, really means the multi-world existers who are existing in multi-worlds all at once. And they're dead. And they died to this thing, this quasi-fake linear bullshit, which never did exist. So all of our lives are invalid, they never did exist. We go through these motions and it's really real. Like if you don't pay your bill, if you go into the marketplace to do something, you got to compete and win so that you can, feed your family. And, there's all that that's going on. And people are convinced that that's what their job is, to work 24/7 to feed their family, feed themselves, or they'll run out and not have enough and die. So they stay, the hamster stays on the wheel till the hamster finally falls off, but the wheel still goes on its own. The wheel doesn't even need the hamster. It just keeps spinning round and round and round. And so this notion of like sort of Jacob's ladder idea of being dead, but then being in the earth, and then, the whole earth working to get you to get out of denial and accept the fact that you died and make your peace with it, and then move on into the light. There is no light. It goes on and on endlessly. I mean, I suppose there's a light that someone else could provide in the laboratory, that you could go into the light and then you could get recycled back to the earth again and think you're in this linear phase and do 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 + 5, step, 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 and believe it all. It's all real. Nothing changes. It's just shit from beginning to end, from soup to nuts. And of course, that's not the way it is, because, you yourself have seen where, you hated somebody and then you loved them. You made peace with them. You were fucked up by something and then you made peace with it. And then it wasn't the big monster you thought it was. And then there's, falling in love and the whole magic of that, and all the wonderful things that can happen despite there being a kind of a cruel world. But those milestones are there to alert us to the fact that this is not real, that, there's something else like falling in love. Falling in love transcends all this. It's almost like a emotional steroid. You feel like you could do anything. You feel like you can walk on air, and you can, but you can't, because we're conditioned to be here for the purpose of somebody else. Anyway, so when they see people that can see things, like seeing these portals. Now, these people at the hospital guarding these portals, they've been there for hundreds of years. I don't know, or however many years, decades and decades. What their story is, and they probably have a whole mythology of, and rules regarding that. Certainly they have a rule about any psychic bleed through will be dealt with a middle of the night MRI raid, where you're tied down to the machine. And then I started punching the machine. When I woke up, I came to with my head in the fucking circle thing, and I started punching at it, and they all got alarmed. It took me back to my room, and then they told Trish that they were checking for brain damage. We could have sued the heck out of them for that, but we didn't. We just took it.
Your hand was still bloody when I got there the next day.
And my hand was bloody?
Yes. I said, what happened here?
Well, they didn't treat me, did they? You'd think they maybe cleaned my hand up. I heard they were going to recommend me to the psych ward after that. But that you were too strong. You were, you were there every day and you weren't going to let something like that happen. Okay, so some more evidence comes out. More, and what would have caused them to do an MRI at 3 a.m? Most of them, they don't work at that hour. So what's the deal? And the deal is what I was talking about. But since it's hard for you to wrap your mind around what I'm talking about, because it's not, here organic earth and, process and, contiguousness, if you will. That's not even a word, but I'll just throw it in there, meaning things are connected and they're logical. Yeah, especially logical. Yeah, things have to be logical. So I don't really know what this would be called today. And where does God and Jesus come into it? Well, Jesus, I remember that in one hospital, they gave me LSD. And I was really messed up. It was one of the roommates. I had 2 roommates. And one was trying to get into a gay tryst with me. And I just didn't believe him. You know what I mean? I didn't believe he was a patient after a while. And the other one gave me this LSD, and I thought, well, this can't be a patient. I took it. I mean, why did I take it? I don't know. I just took it, and then I remember they were playing volleyball or something outside. And rooms were kind of in an enclosed area where there was like a little volleyball court in the middle, and then you were in the room. There were 3 of us in the room, and they started moving in on me. And then I called on Jesus when I was there tripping, and I was tripping. I was scared. I was paranoid, I called on Jesus, God, please help me, Lord, please help me. And Jesus appeared at the doorway. I remember that, the exit door, and he was just like shrouded in light. And I saw him there, and the LSD trip evaporated instantly within like a quarter of a second. And it freaked out the guy that gave it to me, my so-called roommate. He flipped out so much they took him to ICU that night. That's psychiatric ICU, where he stayed for a couple of days because he couldn't handle what happened to me. He couldn't handle that God intervened on my behalf, because those 2 wolves, they would have devoured me. I mean, I could see, they could do anything they want to me, including kill me. But so that was another weird thing. And then I know that one, punk kid was working with the staff. Didn't seem like an organic, normal patient. And I talk about this, and I'm like, well, yeah, these guys are hired. I found out later they hire them, and put them in your room to work on you, to change me, to make me compliant. And we all know what I'm talking about there, right? You can't force me to become compliant with some idiot box called Earth and this whole folly here. You can't force me to become compliant with stupidity when God gave me a brain. You can't call me compliant, which means to surrender to linear thought, when the whole universe is nonlinear. It's linear but nonlinear. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and, I guess I'm going to go ahead and stop it right now.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Please forgive me. Are you going to?
Yeah, but that's really raspy. Hearing the voice of Alex Jones
So
in the middle of the night. We're winning, folks. We're winning. We're winning, folks. Don't worry. But I need you to buy supplements, or I'm going to go out of business. No, it's okay. It's okay. He's not my enemy. And if he's not my enemy, he's my friend. You know what I mean? Because in this world, it's hard to find, Swiss friends, that neutral people that are not, are people that know what's going on, but they're not going to, for whatever reason they have, they're not going to participate. They're not
Well,
going
this
to.
is exciting.
What?
We have technology that can change time and space.
I know that, and I am technology.
That's right, buddy.
I am today. I think if you heard anything I said, you'd realize that I'm talking also about time travel, the real time travel. And okay, so there it is. All right. Now, if you're a reviewer, have to have this conversation. If you're a reviewer, checking me out, scouring the net for things to get on me or whatever. Well, here's your proof that I'm completely crazy. Okay. And so, as the documentary says, believe what you will. I don't care if you believe me or not. What I said, though, about what was happening is my experience. It's real. And I express that. But if you don't, I'm not saying that you have to believe it. If you're into satanic panic, you go right ahead. If you're into like people like me have a mind virus and we need to go to a shrink. How many shrinks do we need? 15, 20? Maybe a shrink every hour. 24 of them. So I can be more like you. So I can be like mentally healthy like you. So I can live in a nice, placid world like you, where things don't just jump out of nowhere and throw the whole game into the gutter, into the dumpster, whatever. Like you, I wouldn't want to, to quote the Alan Parsons song, I wouldn't want to be like you. That would be, for me, that would be suicide, because that would be just shutting off everything. And as time goes on, I predict more and more non-linearity, linearness. Well, I need to combine the word linear with lie. Linear. Because nothing is linear. And there are people who say to me, Zeph, it just looks like they're all dead, like they're all soulless. I'm like, well, there's no reason they can't be. They may very well be dead, and that, like a clone would be, just soulless. And they may be, vexed with shame and guilt, which is how the Dark Lord of this world runs things. He puts us all in fear, shame, and guilt. Fear, shame, and guilt. And so they're afraid to say anything because, as soon as they say, the line moved, the dimensions changed. That wasn't the same person I met yesterday. These people suddenly all put on red shirts and started coming at me, coughing and wheezing and making noises and talking about, how awful this guy's standing over here shopping at Walmart is. That'd be me. And that the world would be better if he just, if we just got rid of him. Yeah. And the sabotaging of your vehicle and the firing at the job and inability to survive. And he said, well, how do you survive? God. I have to fully rely on God, and that's the only thing I can do. Well, what do you mean, God? You hate Christianity and church and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, I hate it. And I really try not to hate the people that participate in it, but It's hard to do. It's hard not to hate them because of the harassment that I had received for no reason when I came on the internet. They were just doing character assassination on me, and I was trying to just make reports, the Zeph report, and just go out and talk to people that want to listen. I didn't understand there'd be this whole wall of, this gauntlet of assholes claiming Jesus. It's almost like, you watch a great show I can recommend. It's is the Righteous Gemstones, Danny McBride's comedy, and starring John Goodman. And that for me sums up the whole idiotic thing of Christianity. And Angel Studios has gone the same way. And it's like this weekend, oh yeah, we're in Easter. Bullshit. There is no Easter. And we don't know what the dates were. We don't even know the circumstances. We don't even know I can't even rely on the history of Jesus. Well, God's word, this word, that word. Anybody telling me anything, I automatically don't believe it. But okay, so here we are, and they're showing, like on Fox here, they're showing Jesus' crown of thorns. So they're doing the whole King of the Jew, torture of Jesus. Give us Barabbas, but not Jesus. We want to kill Jesus. Kill Jesus. That's the weekend. It's Good Friday. What's good about it? You mean where Jesus is strung up on the cross? What's good about Good Friday? Because we have salvation when Jesus dies? That sounds rather predatory. Good thing Jesus died so that we could all be saved. Now, I understand the legal argument of that. What I don't understand is that people would cheer on the death, for selfish purposes. I want to be saved because I don't want to perish. I don't want my slice of the pie in paradise. I put up with enough bullshit here. Yes, but you don't know where you are. You don't know what you are. You don't know who you are. You have no idea what God is, who he is. And the Lord will look at you and go, depart from me, I never knew you. I never once knew you. You were praying to somebody you say is Jesus, but who in the hell knows what that is? And how do you find out? Well, you find out by asking. Have you ever asked God to help you to understand? Or has it just been like a slot machine? You just keep putting prayers in there, hoping it gets good and ripe with requests, so eventually it just bursts full of gold coins. Judas was 30 pieces of silver for his excellent job. And oh, I love Judas. Without Judas, we'd have no Jesus. Yeah, but we don't have Jesus. We don't have God. We don't have anything. God does what he wants to do. And since Jesus is God, according to the scriptures, the Alpha and the Omega, the creator, then in that case, that's the case, then we should inquire to find out what God is up to. Because my assuming I know what he's up to, and then saying you got to do this, that, and the other thing to show yourself worthy and approved of by God. I mean, that's, cherry picking scriptures and then thumping your head with them. That just makes me an asshole. And these assholes in Christianity are just, one of the reasons they're so arrogant, I think, is because, first of all, Satan is their real God. Jesus is Satan in their hands. You know what I mean? And they're basically on a power trip. And it's like you watch this Gemstones, and you know that Danny McBride, the showrunner on this, you just got to think to yourself, he had a rough time in church. He probably came up through that Southern Baptist thing and all that revival garbage. And he probably and they're talking revival. It's going to be a big revival. It's going to be a big revival, and it's we're going to grow our church, right? We'll build some condos right here on the beach. We got a stage out in the water, and you'll be able to preach from the water. Can you imagine that? Baptizing all those souls. And eventually they get caught with like cocaine and hose, and then they decided that they were going to do something different this time. No vaginas. It's all penises. It's like whenever someone's nude, it's a penis, you see. And that to me is funny also. So I get it, but it's not enough for me. I mean, it's sad, ultimately. Comedy is always, it's pathos and drama together. There's a sadness there that all these people are all full of shit, and they're misleading people away from God while telling them they're saved, and just stripping them of their money, and they're just there as jackals just to take your money, and then they lavish themselves with Mercedes limos and private jets and mansions and even theme parks for the kids, like their own private Disneyland, and it's so disgusting that it's basically beyond it. I know that the whole thing is to bash Jesus. I know they're trying to bash God, because my prediction here is I don't think any one of them believes God is real, and then it's all been one big scam to fleece people to separate them from their money. A fool and his money are often separated. And I think that's basically most of the people who participate in these revivals, like even the Chuck Smith thing. They're all fools. There are people that just don't think. Well, I was going to die of alcoholism, but Jesus saved me down at the revival. Well, good thing you went to the revival, but your being saved had nothing to do with them. And then it only made you dependent, that any kind of salvation or talking to the Lord from now on had to be tempered by other people. Only problem is you're the only one here. So what are you going to do? Pretend there are other people? Do you have little friends to talk to? Hey, why did you kill all those people? I'm imitating my Vincent Damien Del Monte character from Glass Backwards, which one of the best characters ever. But he was like they had him as a CIA assassin, Mike MK Ultra assassin, and he'd have sometimes these little friends around, and they would do all the killing, and then he'd go, "Why did you guys do that?" When it was really him doing it. And I know, it'd make a great. Doesn't matter.
Glass backwards.
The last thing is it's really true what the Bible says about glorying in the things of the earth, and to lay your treasure up in heaven, meaning in the spiritual realm, because this realm is fake. I just want to teach this one time. It's because this realm is fake. You're told to put your treasure in something real. But you have to believe through faith. No. Faith is something that is a gift. It's a spiritual gift, actually. You don't really even have to believe it. Just if you lay your treasure in reality, then you already are exercising your faith, that you believe that this is not reality and that is reality. If you build your castles here, they're going to crumble when the tide comes up, and you'll be lost at sea, because everything dies, because it's not real. And so this idea that I'm dead is I think I've told you I've began therapy, and it's just talking over things like this, and also talking about the end of life issues, whatever fears, whatever things are not wrapped up from earlier, people that I would forgive, but they're dead. Many, many people dead now. Just a few of us going on. And you got to look at that and go, this just can't be real, And I'm here to say, congratulations. Here's another one who can see. Welcome. I love talking to you and people who feel, yeah, I understand that sometimes your words makes other people feel like locking you up. They hear you, they want to lock you up. Most of the trouble I've gotten into in my life with others has been by my speech, by things I've said, or things I've considered, or things I've thought of. And what do we do about a hurting world? Well, you see a hurting people and you can help, then you help. But I don't think you have to think about it, do you? You just automatically do. You don't do it because you think it's a good thing to do and that God would love you for it. You do it automatically because that's what you do. That's who you are. And who you are when the veil is pulled away. The last thing, if you need to straighten up and prove to people you're sane, it's not who you are in that case. It's who they think you are that will eventually protect you. Like you take the covering of Jesus. Oh, it's an asshole Christian. Well, we'll get Antifa, we'll get them. The bigots, racists. You boomers are selfish. They never quit. They just take everything and suck up all the resources. So you come into this hospital and you're a boomer, a white male, senior, we're going to fucking kill you. We're going to give those resources to a kid struggling with leukemia, not you. And because we're compassionate, we're loving. Okay, so the circus that's going on in the world right now is gotten so shocking and surprised at Trump administration. People are talking about time travel and folding space, and that this technology has been around forever, and life extension to 200 years old per person, and this technology is around. It exists right now, and it's just been kept. It's just like Elon Musk wanted to. No, I know a lot of you hate Elon Musk, but I'm just going to tell you what he wanted to do. Is that all right, or are you just you're just like a blockhead? Blockhead! Don't just be a blockhead. So Elon Musk wanted to do a Tesla thing with free energy. He still wants to, because we can have energy in the air and just tap into it. You don't need to pay for it. And if you had that, of course, people would all be able to have time to think about what this all is and probably get some kind of strategy to get the fuck out of here, or at least to go mobile. So, so the veil it's just about gone. I mean, it's thin as can be, but people feel frustrated and stuck. And I can tell you this, if you go back through your memories with the idea that you might have died here and there, that might open up some passageways, or it might not. But just I've had to do that. I really had to think about that. And what it can mean in the positive is, here you are alive, but you're not tethered anywhere. There's no mother or father. You already achieved your destiny, and you have unlimited freedom. But before I get, before you start salivating at that, I think I better go. I don't know. I'm trying to, stay out of the. I understand that I also have the capability of talking about world events and news and keeping it on the up and up. But I mean, we're dealing with deep issues of existence here. Yeah, it's Saturday. So Shabbat Shalom, and may you find what you're looking for. And I know it's not this. It's right. But one last little anecdote. There was a guy here in Santa Fe that hid a treasure in the mountains. There's a Netflix documentary on this, and told people in a book. He wrote a poem of rhymes to kind of show where the hidden treasure is, and it was worth millions. It had gold coins and jewelry, all kinds of stuff in it. And people were going crazy trying to find it. I mean, they were using expensive gear, they were satellites, and they were using drones, and they were searching the Rockies and up to Yellowstone and all the way down through Colorado and
For years.
for years. And a couple of people died on the way, and it became a big deal here in Santa Fe. And finally, somebody found it. At least that's what they said. But a lot of the people that were searching didn't believe it. They said, "Oh, that's kind of random." They didn't believe it. So to be at peace, it had to be proven to them that, and I thought, what a great thing, a hidden treasure to bring out all the petty foibles and jealousy and competitiveness and anger and hatred in people. What a great thing to do. And I often thought about hiding something up in the woods too. I just thought, yeah, but I won't do it. It's been done. I've got other fish to fry. But that certainly was interesting to show how people really, really took that seriously. And in some cases, it gave people purpose in them. They had no purpose till this treasure came along. And then all of a sudden they had a purpose. So, and with that, I bid you shalom. See you next time.